Good morning and welcome to Cityscope. My name is Mike Cooley. I'll be your host for the next 30 minutes or so. Cityscope, as you know, is a show about different happenings going on around here, the great city of Leominster. We hope to keep the show informative, interesting, and sometimes humorous. So joining with me today in the studio is our very own Jack Celli from right here at
Caught me looking at the monitor saying, that's a pretty good-looking guy, that Mike Cooley.
Well, you're true there. He is a good-looking guy. But you see here, you don't have to look at the cameras because they'll actually find you, in case nobody's ever told you that before.
Yeah, some of the best cameramen in town working them today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So thanks for joining me today. We had a little bit of a brief opening, so we wanted to talk about the preservation wing at LATV. You took me upstairs into the archive once before and showed me you're going to have thousands and thousands of old movies and videos and DVDs.
Well, we're getting there, and it's kind of neat at this point. This might be a real good opportunity and good timing. We had, like you said, there was a cancellation today, so last minute replacement. But I think the timing is really good. So, they say things have a way of working themselves out because of the fact that it's beginning to take on a life of its own. And for, some of the people out there that don't really know what we're doing as part of our mission here at Leominster Access Television, the fact that Carl Pimarini, who's the executive director, spent over 20 years at WGBH, and pretty much, if you went back and looked at the history of their archives, which now is one of the biggest archives, video archives, moving image archives in the world, I would say, Carl was right there at the beginning. Matter of fact, he had brought me on right after college for a little bit of time, and it started out with just him moving a few tapes and me stacking them on the shelves and categorizing where the tapes were. And we're talking at this point at GBH, 2-inch tapes. Each one ran about a half hour, but they weighed about 50 pounds apiece.
Those are the big old cans.
Oh man, they were in plastic cans, and I mean, we kept in great shape just putting them on shelves. But anyway, with his background and my background, with a love for old pictures, old film, we decided that one of the missions of Leominster Access Television would be a preservation wing, a restoration wing, which would give us and some other institutions in the city, for instance, the Leominster Historical Commission, the Leominster Historical Society, the library, that have collections of glass negatives, old home movies. It would give us an opportunity to help them preserve them and to share some of these things with the community through, the gift of the town that we have with Leominster Access Television.
Now,
so things are working out good.
What's a glass negative?
You don't know what a glass negative is?
I grew up on Instamatics.
All right, well, Instamatics, let's look at a 35 millimeter camera. You take a picture and it puts the image in negative on a plastic base. Before they had plastic, and with the advent of photography, a silver solution, which was light sensitive, was put on a piece of glass. And the lens focused the image on the glass, and again, the chemicals reacted with the light on a piece of glass. So basically what you had was, instead of a 35 millimeter negative that you made a film, a print from, a photographic print, you had a negative which was on a sheet of plate glass. And some of these things, most of them are about 4 inches by 5 inches in size, but we've run across some from a collection by Percy Johnson, who was a photographer in central Massachusetts back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, whose collection is housed at the Leominster Historical Commission. We ran into some of these negatives that were actually 11 inches by 14 inches. So
I was going to say, those must have come out of like those old cameras that you'd see on TV holding up the poof.
Yeah.
And those are the glass negatives.
The incredible thing about them is, again, now they're over 100 years old. They're very fragile, but the detail. I mean, if you have a 35 millimeter camera, and people are amazed. Wow, look at some of the details, some of the great photographs that people are taking with 35 millimeter. Now we're looking at a piece of film that's this big versus one this big. If you take an 11 by 14 and we're scanning them digitally, at least 2,400 DPI. I mean, we could be looking at a scene that was taken in downtown Leominster and zoom into a number plate from, you know, where the Rotary used to be down to where Dunkin' Donuts is and actually read the number plate, or, you know, count the
Really?
hairs on a horse's tail. That's the kind of detail you're looking at. I mean, it's mind-boggling. But that's just one of the things, you know, that we're doing.
Now, in part of the archiving, it's a lot of the old movies
Right.
that you see. A lot of times, when you look at it, a lot of times what's playing is the old football games. You know, and Leominster is a big football city, and let's put in a plug for the rivalry between Fitchburg and Leominster.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot more than just watching Fitchburg-Leominster high school games.
Right.
I think I've seen some up at the Sportsman's Club.
Yeah.
Recently played, and I've seen some just, what was it, for parades maybe downtown?
Yeah,
Did I see something with a parade downtown? What other types of
We ran
things are
across
in there, and how do you get these? Where do they all come from?
That's another good question. What we're hoping to do is establish a better relationship between, you know, the average citizen out there who might have a cache of 8mm movies that, you know, Uncle John took, that have been sitting around in their cellar for years, and, you know, they may have had VHS copies made years ago, and the films are just still sitting there. We're hoping to establish a relationship with people like this where they will bring their films in. They could either donate them outright to us, and what we would do is clean them, splice them, in some cases, you know, have to run them through a chemical solution that lubricates them to take the brittleness out of them, and we're digitally transferring them frame by frame, you know, into an electronic format, which pretty much, you know, enables us to put them on DVDs, to keep them on hard drives, to access them, to show them better. So, I mean, if people have films out there that they want to donate to us, what we will do is, you know, preserve them, and then, you know, we'll give them a DVD copy that they can have. We can either hold on to the films here as part of their collection, and we do have a room that's pretty much temperature controlled, humidity controlled, and they'll last a lot longer with us. Or if they just want to, like, lend them to us. The problem with lending them to us, if it's just a home movie where, you know, there's really nothing of interest to the community, if they're lent to us, we're going to have to pick out what we transfer. If they're given to us, we'll transfer everything. And sometimes some of the footage we see, like you said, parades from the 1950s, 1940s. Babe Palecchia has had some of the things he brought in here, and I don't know if you remember Babe's
Sure.
ice cream stand.
I don't remember it, but I saw it on LATV.
Yeah, we've got some great footage of, you know, the ice cream cone that was out front that a lot of people remember. The building of the, you know, the Leominster Motor Inn, which was originally Babe's Motel, which was pink stucco. I mean, some really cool footage. He actually had footage back in the late 30s of a football game being played at Fenway Park, and it was mind-boggling to, you know, to see Fenway Park, you know, from the 30s with a football game being played there. Things like that we're interested in preserving, building a library where, say, for instance, 10 years from now, a kid at the high school is doing a project and they say, yeah, I heard that in 1938 there was a hurricane that came through Leominster. Do you have any footage? And we just happen to have some. We could go into our database, 1938 hurricane, and, you know, pick out the footage, and the kid could use it in his presentation.
Just regular home movies, though? Would you
Regular
want that?
home
Just
movies.
If, you know, the Bergerons up the street, they have some movies, and
We can't stress enough the importance of home movies, because, number one, it's an art form. You know, people think that it's just a home movie. But again, if they have a parade, you know, a Civic Day parade, the Bicentennial Parade, if you go back, well, into the 70s, which was, you know, just the advent of video technology, to make a videotape, which we take for granted today, someone had to walk around with a big deck with a camera. There's really not much of that out there. But people started taking home movies, I'd say, you know, early 30s, and there's still some of this film footage out there. And with today's technology, the digital age, and the fact that we at Leominster Access Television have invested in some of this equipment, it allows us to take these images and preserve them, and again, like I said, share them with the public, a kid doing research, et cetera, et cetera. It's I'm really excited about this.
Now, how old of movies do you want to go back? Is there a time limit, like in the 60s or the 70s, or how old is old?
Old is, anything before the advent of videotape. So even the early 80s, or if there's, I'm just trying to think of something that may have happened in the 80s that...
I mean, I'm thinking if people were, if they donated things, and Leominster has always been, I mean, we're growing now, but Leominster's always been such a close-knit community. It's always been a small town where everybody knew everybody. And it would be pretty cool if, you had a videotape, like you say, an old birthday party, and it could be the kid whose birthday it was, and all of a sudden he could be the next governor.
He could be the next president of the United States.
You never know.
So things like that are important. For instance, Kyle Pomerine and myself, our love affair with film goes back to, the early 70s. And I can't remember what year it was, but I'm going to say the late 70s, 1978, 79. One night we just said, hey, we're going to do a little film downtown, Mike the Hot Dog Man. You remember Mike the Hot Dog Man at all?
Vaguely.
Okay, Mike the Hot Dog Man
was living in Westminster then, but I used to come to Leominster.
He was a
legend.
I mean, he used to set up downtown. This is when they still had the Rotary, and people used to just drive around, and everybody congregated late at night in front of Mike's hot dog stand.
Matter of fact, we were just talking about Mike the Hot Dog Man a few days ago over at the Elks. We were just talking about Mike the Hot Dog Man.
So one night we said, 11 o'clock we're going to film down to Mike the Hot Dog stand. So it was kind of cool because we ran an extension cord from, I believe it's the Scanlon building, where they have an elevator across the street from what used to be Leominster Savings Bank. We ran an extension cord into the hallway, plugged it in. We ran a wire across Pleasant Street at the corner of Pleasant Street next to Wyman's, taped it to the road, had a couple of lights on Mike, and we just started filming, and people were stopping with their cars and waving, and I mean, one guy had a bottle of champagne, and Mike put on a show. He kissed all the pretty girls, he did the regular hot dog, and we're thinking back, that might be some of the only footage of a guy who was a legend in downtown Leominster for years, footage of Mike the Hot Dog Man. And we've got about 20 minutes of film from him. That's, just one thing. So, that's in the late 70s. Someone else was saying, hey, remember the Little Kitchen, which is down by where Joseph's Jewelers is? Another, thing in Leominster that was a legendary place for people to go have two in a bowl. You know what I'm saying? And we found a little bit of footage of the Little Kitchen. It's all important. Monty's Garden Restaurant. We're hearing some rumors that Monty's might not exist, for much longer. And we happened to find, I'm trying to remember where it came from. I think it came from the Historical Society. Some movies that were taken inside Monty's, I'm going to say early 40s. And it's just incredible stuff. And again, we've digitized them, and now they're in electronic format where they're accessible and preserved. And it's just, I'm having a ball.
Now, it costs a lot of money to do that. It has to set up the whole, I've been up there once and see it and all.
The setup was pretty expensive. There's, a little bit of expense once the production starts, taking place. But let's just say it's more of a labor-intensive job at this point than it is in terms of, now that the initial investment has been made for the equipment, it's more of a labor-intensive job where, time is involved. And if you look at time and money, it can be very expensive. It takes time. We're talking single-frame captures from a 24 frames a second film is projected, so we're capturing individual frames off of a film.
Right. That's what I watched one day when you were up there doing it and transferring it over, and it seems very labor intensive, or time consuming.
And you have to monitor it because some of these films are old and brittle. They have to be cleaned, re-spliced. Like I said, some of them we actually soak in a solution that brings some pliability back into them and allows them to go through the machine. And there's a lot to it.
So if people want to donate a film to you, if they're cleaning out their attics, their basements, they find something that is of use, they can just stop by LATV here and drop it off?
Drop it off. We'll fill out a little form, donation. We hold it under their name in a collection. For instance, my Uncle Johnny has some stuff here that, little by little we're transferring. Kevin Moran's family actually had some 16mm films that go back to the 50s that we hold under their collection. So it will, forever and ever be associated with the collection of Kevin Moran, or the collection of John Celli, or the collection of Babe Paleckier. So anytime, something goes out over the air, for instance, some of Babe's footage of a 1937 football game from Doyle Field says, courtesy of Babe Paleckier Collection. So 100 years from now, Babe's name is still going to be remembered.
And a lot of these people have got to have a lot of films still left at their house, because, back then when in the advent of the movie camera, everybody seemed to have one, or, if you were lucky enough you had one, but if you had one, you carried it with you everywhere you went. Football footage, I would imagine, is just a ton of it. Now, I was watching one not that long ago that seemed it was like a family party, and it was interesting to watch. It was on a lake, I think.
Yeah,
it was on a lake. It had the kids swimming and canoeing and rowboating.
That was from actually from Sandy Ricka brought it in, from Ricka's Kinder Camp, which is another another staple of the community, and footage going back. I believe Mike Barnacle actually went to Kinder Camp, and there's some footage of Mike Barnacle when he was like 5 or 6 years old at Kinder Camp, in swim lessons or in arts and crafts. It's great stuff that you tell your kids about. I remember we used to go to a place called Kinder Camp, and they laugh at you, and they see it, and it's like, wow, or this is what like the lawn party. Kyle, did you show that footage yet of the lawn party?
Waiting for you.
Okay, yeah. Why don't we run some of this footage?
Okay.
And we can keep talking. But this footage came from the Leominster Historical Society. Linda Pinder was the connection there. And it's a lawn party at Pierce Street School. And we're guessing this is in the late 40s. Great footage to see. We're looking at, kids probably in a gym class or recess just having a great time. And Pierce Street School is in North Leominster on Main Street, and I believe now it's condominiums.
It's condominiums now.
But this is, when it was a functioning school, and just to see how life was in the past, again, how simple it was.
And what would be neat is if you actually got some people from here in the city that recognize themselves and came forward and say, hey, that's me.
Yeah. This film was in pretty good shape. Most of it was exposed correctly. Some of it was a little bit underexposed. But again, through digital technology, you're able to correct it a little bit. You can bring stuff back, but there's an old saying: you can't shine, the word.
Right. Yeah.
You can do you do the best you can, and it looks a heck of a lot better than it would have. But again, life like it used to be in Leominster, Pierce Street School, which is now condominiums. Another cool thing that happened with this stuff that came in, Kevin Moran had made a documentary on the Leominster Fire Department, and we found, or Kevin actually found, an old VHS tape that was made from a group of people that called themselves the Leominster Cinema League. And it was a documentary that they had made in the 50s about the Leominster Fire Department. And we had utilized that footage in the film. Since the film had been complete, we located the original film.
Really?
So we get a couple of scenes on this after this lawn party here of a transfer that was made from the original film. Now, I didn't have time to put this together today, but a comparison between like the VHS tape that we used in the the recent fire documentary and the quality of the transfer from the original film, it's like day and night. I mean, it just looks so much better coming from the original film.
Coming off the original.
That's gonna, we're gonna have just a couple scenes that people hadn't seen coming up next. Some fire trucks running down. I think it was Pleasant Street. But again, this is my passion.
It's great to have it. And I wasn't born and brought up in Leominster.
Yeah.
I moved to Leominster in 1986. And I mean, to me, everybody knows I think Leominster is the greatest city in the world. And seeing things like this, here's this one now playing, seeing things like this, I love it because it lets me know a little bit more of what happened before I moved into the city. So when then somebody's talking about things, it gives me a little bit more of an education, and you can talk about it a little bit more.
And and growing up here in Leominster, running around the streets, 6th Street, across from what used to be the Colombo Hall. God, would I love to get some footage of the Colombo Hall. And remembering these things, and telling my kids stories about, the guys used to come on Sunday morning and put their little wooden chairs out in front of Colombo Hall, which later became Tyke's. They know where it is because of that.
I know what Tyke's is.
And sit there and play mortar. You know what mortar is?
No.
We'll go into that later.
Okay.
They drink their wine at 7 o'clock in the morning and then go to church and come back and finish we'll call them discussions, but they sounded more like arguments. Anytime you get a couple Italians together having a discussion, it's an argument.
Of course, it's always an argument.
But remembering these things and being able to show people what this was like, I think it's incredible stuff. It's beautiful stuff.
It's great. It's a great thing that they do, and I hope that people can actually come up and find these things, because people have these films at the house, and they're probably looking at them saying, "What do I do with this? Should I throw it away? I haven't got a projector to play it anymore.
They're brittle.
You can't get one. It's no good.
At this
Leave
point,
it up on the shelf.
A lot of them, that we're getting in are brittle. If they don't really have much life left for to sit down and say, hey, I'm going to project this thing, because if you run through the projector, it's going to break 5 to 6 times. Sprocket holes get shrunk. Some of the stuff that's been stored correctly is still in surprisingly great shape. Good colors. The stuff that hasn't been taken care of. Matter of fact, we got a film in a couple months ago that was in a cellar, and it had gotten some moisture on it, and it was covered with mold. It was Leominster High versus Waltham. I believe it was 1953 or
Could you fix it?
54. I soaked it for 2 weeks in that solution. I was able to get rid of the mold, and I was able to get it through the machine, and it looks surprisingly good.
That's good. I can't wait to see it.
It looks surprisingly good.
Well, this worked out perfect.
Yeah,
I'm glad you took the
I had an
time to come on
opportunity
down
to
and tell us a
do
little
it.
bit about the archiving and the preservation. It's been perfect.
Sorry I talked so much.
That's all right. That's okay.
again,
We're going to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Joe Gunther and Christina Gunther over at Edward Jones Investments, Dave DeGiovanni from Montechusett Vending for helping bring Cityscope to you today. The Monument Project is alive and well and going great. Marquettes are still available, along with the raffle tickets at $50 a piece. Those are available at Edward Jones Investments, so you can always log on to our website at welcomehomevet.com. This is a great project. We want to build a monument welcoming home troops that are defending our country, so please get on board, check out the website. You can give me a call at 978-840-3302. We'll get you on board. You can buy a raffle ticket for a brand new 2006 Ford pickup truck that's being graciously donated by Quirk Ford down in Quincy, or perhaps $15,000 in cash. So please get on board. Don't forget, every veteran is somebody's hero. Don't forget the vet. My name is Mike Cooley. Thanks for watching Cityscope today. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Mike.